So, what if you could cut your Claude Code bill by 80% and barely notice a difference? That's the pitch with GLM 5.2. 756 billion parameters, open weights, and it slots right into Claude Code like Opus never left. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not Opus. But it's close enough on most tasks that the price gap makes the decision pretty obvious. Here's everything you need to know. GLM 5.2 comes from Z.ai, Z.ai. It's their latest flagship. 756 billion parameters. Mixture of experts architecture. 128K context window out of the box. And the weights are just out there. Hugging Face, model scope. Download them yourself if you want. Here's the trick that makes this work. Z.ai exposes an Anthropic-compatible API gateway, so Claude Code doesn't even know it's talking to a different model. Tool use, subagents, the whole harness. It just works. And it handles a lot. Multi-file refactors, codebase analysis, agentic loops with full tool use, writing PRs and documentation. Honestly, the boring but expensive stuff that eats most of your Opus tokens. All of that runs fine on GLM 5.2. But the real story is cost. 40 cents per million input tokens. $1.60 output. Compare that to Opus at $15 and $75. That's not a small discount. That's a fundamentally different budget conversation. Now, it's not a free lunch. I want to be honest about where Opus still wins, because pretending otherwise would waste your time. Complex, multi-step reasoning, the kind where you need careful intermediate checks, Opus is better. Long agentic loops past 50 turns where coherence starts to drift, Opus holds up longer. Adversarial prompting, red team stuff, highly specialized safety work, yeah, Opus has stronger guardrails there. So the honest pattern is simple. GLM 5.2 is your default. When something produces wrong answers or gets stuck, you flip that project to Opus and rerun. That's it. No ceremony. But here's where GLM 5.2 genuinely surprised me. One-shot creative builds. The fun stuff. Snake games, landing pages, Pomodoro timers. We threw a batch of 10 at it. 8 out of 10 worked first try. The other 2 needed 1 round of debugging. And here's the thing. Opus had the same hit rate on the same set. Visual polish is slightly behind, but code quality? Comparable. And the cost difference on these builds is wild. A typical build me a small app prompt, about 30,000 output tokens. On Opus, that's $2.25. On GLM 5.2, about 40 cents. Same result, different credit card statement. Now the killer use case, the one where the cost savings actually change what's possible. People are calling it storm research. The idea is simple. You fan out a big research question across a bunch of parallel subagents in Claude Code. Because GLM 5.2 is so cheap, you can run 8 or 10 subagents instead of 2 or 3. Sweep 20-plus sources. Synthesize everything into a long-form report. All for about 1/5 of what Opus would charge. And this isn't just about saving money. It's about getting better output. Same budget, same wall clock time, but 3 to 5 times wider coverage. More sources, more perspectives, better synthesis. The research is actually better because you can afford to go wider. And the open source angle, this isn't just philosophical. It has real, practical consequences for how you run your workflow. You can self-host if you've got the hardware. 8 A100s or H100s for the full model, less for quantized versions. You're not locked into Z.ai as your only provider. You can fine-tune for your specific domain, and nobody can deprecate or rate limit your model overnight. That last one matters more than people think. Think of it as rent versus own. With Claude or GPT, you're renting compute access, period. With GLM 5.2, you can rent through Z.ai's API, or you can own. Download the weights, run them yourself. Most people will still rent because GPUs are expensive, but having that option, it puts real pricing pressure on everyone else. So let's talk benchmarks. Where does GLM 5.2 actually land on the leaderboard? HumanEval, 91%. Opus hits 94. MMLU, 88 versus 91. SWE-bench verified, 62. Opus gets 71. Math, 85 to 89. AIME, 75 to 82. So consistently, 3 to 7 points behind Opus across the board. Strong second tier. Not equal, but close. Now put that next to the pricing table. Opus, $15 input, $75 output. Sonnet 4.6, $3 and $15. Haiku, $1 and $5. GLM 5.2, 40 cents and $1.60. Even Sonnet costs 7.5 times more on input. That gap is massive. Which brings us to the bigger picture. The framing that honestly matters more than any single model. Renters use closed source flagships via API. Best raw capability, no infrastructure headaches. But you're locked into their pricing, their deprecation schedule, their content policies. Owners use open weight models via API or self-hosted. Slightly less capability, but full optionality. You can switch providers, fine-tune, run on your own hardware. And GLM 5.2 is what makes the owner camp credible for the first time. Before this, the gap between open weight and closed flagship was just too big. Professional users stayed in the rent camp because they had to. GLM 5.2 changes that math. So let's actually set this up. The whole thing takes about 90 seconds. I'm not exaggerating. Step 1. Head to Z.ai, sign up, go to the API keys section in your dashboard. Generate a new key. And save it somewhere safe because you'll only see the full key once. Classic. Step 2. Open your project root. Find or create .claude/systems.local.json. Drop in an env block that points Anthropic base BURL at Z.ai's Anthropic compatible gateway. Set your auth token. And here's the key trick. You map every model tier to GCC 5.2, Opus, Sonnet, Haiku, sub-agent model. All of them point to GLM. So whether Claude Code asks for Opus, Sonnet, or spins up a Haiku sub-agent, every request gets silently routed to GLM 5.2 through Z.ai. Claude Code doesn't even know. It thinks it's talking to Anthropic. And because settings.local.json is project scoped, this is per project switching. Drop that config into your research projects, your content repos, your refactoring sweeps. Keep your critical production work on Opus. One file. That's the whole toggle. Step 4. Just verify it worked. Start Claude Code in that project. The UI looks the same, but pop open your Z.ai dashboard, watch the token counter tick up, and check that your Anthropic bill stays flat. Done. So, bottom line, where does this actually leave us? GLM 5.2 is your new default for most knowledge work. Refactoring, research storms, one-shot builds, documentation, all of it. When it visibly fails, flip that project back to Opus. One env var change. You'll save roughly 80% of your monthly AI spend without losing much capability. That's not hype. That's just math.
But honestly,
the bigger signal matters more than GLM 5.2 itself. Open weight models have caught up. The gap is small enough now that owning your model is a real option. And that shift, rent versus own, is going to define how power users think about AI tooling for the next 2 years, at least.